Hi guys, welcome to my second ever speed build on this channel. This is the Giganotosaurus forest that I teased back in my first speed build in this series for the Monolophosaurus and Archelon, which you would have just seen me checking on because it's been a while since I've been in this park and in Jurassic World Evolution 2 at all, but the announcement of Evolution 3 got me really hyped. And I wanted to hop back in this game and continue building in this park, especially because they added those new decorations. As you can see here, I really wanted to use one of these new statues, this family statue. So I've gone for the T-Rex here, and I've picked Jurassic World Rebirth colors here for the lights as a little. Those are meant to represent rebirth. Yeah, I wanted to hop back in and build in this park, which I need name suggestions for, by the way. This park, as a reminder, the theme is just colorful, temperate, with my favorite species in the game, some of my favorites, so nothing too special. So I'm not sure, this is the Autumn Germany map, so I need help picking a name. But as for these other decorations, we have these din items for the new company in Jurassic World Evolution 3, and I thought that this big shipping container set and some of these little signs fit better in this backstage area. So we've come back here, and while we're back here, we also just add a little bit of extra clutter because you can never have too much clutter. But yeah, that free update gave us those 3 dinosaur family statues for the Rex, Trike, and Stego, and then these little din signs. And I found I like the look of the DIN the little name logo just sitting in front of these buildings to suggest that these are owned by din. Yeah, this I'm still not great at speed build voiceovers. I'm doing my best. I like having a script. I don't have a script. But yeah, you'll see me throughout this video hopping back to the stuff I've already built just to reference what I did, because it's been so long I don't remember. And I really value consistency in my park builds, and so I do that quite a bit. I think I do that here. Yeah, I check. How did I cover up that gate last time? Yeah, that's what I thought. Just lots of fluffy bushes and fluffy trees. Old reliable. But yeah, this is the Giganotosaurus forest that I mentioned last time. This is what the idea I had that made me want to start this park. I wanted to build for them first, but obviously Giganotosaurus isn't the ideal entrance animal to have such a big ticket animal right at the front of the park, so I wanted to wait a little bit. So here we are in episode 2, building for the Giganotosaurus. The idea for this habitat was just to have it be really lush with all these red and orange trees, and then have the Giganotosauruses kind of navigating through that forest. I don't want them actually walking through the trees, through the patches of forest. I don't like the look of that when dinosaurs just kind of phase through trees. So we find a solution to that, and that solution, spoiler, is a lot of rock work. There's so many rocks in this build, you guys, and so I tried to cut out some of the less interesting parts, but most of it is still in here. Obviously, this is an even longer speed build than my first video in this series, and that's because I really like long speed builds. I like seeing people place down a bajillion rocks. I find it relaxing, and so I'd love to know if you guys also enjoy that, or if you prefer shorter speed builds. Let me know what kind of videos, what sort of building in Evolution 2 videos you enjoy. But yeah, this is a large habitat, And as you see here, we're working on our first viewing area. I have a whole bunch of viewing areas. And we also have the little informational signs that I've done. If you remember, I like using the habitat markers paired with the Mr. DNA statue to sort of imply a little informational stand, or like you press a button and Mr. DNA is like, Giganotosaurus. That was what was that impression? Um, but as you saw me there, when I saw the new Din logo piece, the Velociraptor silhouette in front of the little globe, I thought that worked really well as kind of an extra, like a generic informational sign that sort of implies, that it's providing education on the animals in the habitat that you place it next to. I don't know. I just thought that the combination of those three pieces worked pretty well. So I add some more of those at the very end of this build once we have all the other viewing areas set up, because there are quite a few, because this is quite a large habitat. But we are only going to have 2 Giganotosauruses in here, and I decided to give them some tiny friends. We'll get to those later in the video. For a second, I think about outlining the habitat with a different terrain brush, but then I immediately get distracted and I never go back to that. I don't really have plans for my habitats. I know some people like to draw them out and really have a strong vision of it in their head before they start to build, but not me. Like as you see there, I thought that ramp was too steep, and so I kind of make this little sidestep thingy. I don't know how to describe it, and I actually use a restroom here. Good trick if you really want to maintain some level terrain. Just place a little building there, and then build around it. But building ramps in this game is so tedious. I spend way too long on them in this video. I am so excited for Jurassic World Evolution 3, partly because it will have a dedicated ramp tool, which we see in the trailers, and so I'm excited for that. That'll make building stuff like this so much easier. Very excited for everything coming in Evolution 3, the babies, the new terrain tools, even the modular building. I don't know how much I'll be using the modular building because I barely even use it in Planet Zoo right now. I mean, I use it, but I'm not like an architect, so I kind of struggle with that. As you see here, I thought that this little plateau really suited a little attraction. I say little, these buildings are huge, and I actually forgot that we had these attraction buildings in the game. So what I did there was I saved preemptively in case placing this building messed with the terrain too much, which it did, and so I just loaded back in and placed it again slightly differently. But yeah, I forgot that we had these sort of attraction buildings, and so one of my new favorite things to do, which is what we're building here, a little bonus kind of mini speed build in this habitat speed build, is we're making a fossil zone dig site attraction. This is inspired by one of Evolution Square's ideas, since this game has such limited options for attractions. And actually, right there was my first crash. This park is not even that big. Why that's crash number 1. I don't know what the issue is, but anyway. Evolution Square has proposed a bunch of ideas for these little implied attractions that you can build using the pieces and decorations that we have in the game. And one of them is this little fake dig site where you add all these little, the tents and one of these skeletons. And the suggestion is that, kids and anyone really could come in here and grab a shovel. Or more likely, one of those delicate little brushes. But you can dig around and for like the fake fossils that the staff have buried in the sand, and it's a little like fake dig site. I think it's a really cute idea, and one of the options we have for this attraction building is a fossil zone. And so I have discovered one of my favorite things to do now, I say that, this is only my second time doing it, is to combine the little fake dig site with all those props and the attraction building. The implication kind of being that, you dig up a fossil and then you go like turn it into the building. You report back to the building and you either like trade it in for prizes like a Chuck E. Cheese, or I imagine kids would actually want to keep what they've dug up. So they probably like clean it for you and get it all, bagged and everything and ready for you to take home, or you use it to assemble something, some sort of activity inside that supplements the actual outdoor part of it where you're digging up the fossils. All of this is obviously totally implied, but I think it looks really good, and I love the look of these cute little tiny dig sites. I'm really happy with how this one came out in the end. The idea is this is a sort of like deserty Badlands thing, and so I've also decided to use some of those little potted plants alongside the desert plants and Mediterranean plants to further sell that theme. And the idea is this temperate biome can't really maintain them in the soil, and so that's why I'm using the potted versions. The reality of the situation is the potted plants have these itty bitty hitboxes, and they are able to fill in these tiny gaps that I want filled that even the tiniest rocks can't fit into. I love the tiny hitboxes on the potted plants, but I never really find a use for them. And so I thought that they would work well here. Here's an example of me fiddling with the rocks. I do this so much in this video, and then I just end up plopping in a couple of the potted plants because they fit easy peasy. Yeah, I really like how this little dig site turned out. Hopefully you guys find it inspiring. I think it's a really cute implied attraction. Once again, all credits go to Evo. This is an Evolution Square idea. But I really like it, and so I decided to throw one up here on atop this large plateau that sort of overlooks the habitat. I use these little yellow signs to sort of mark where the entrances into this fake dig site are. I like using flags as markers. I did that earlier in this same episode with the red flag again, marking sort of a staff only area. I find them most useful for that. And so we have, lots more rock work. I'm mixing rocks, which I don't do. And there is the second crash. Thankfully, it's only those two crashes. But you may notice now, oh look, there's some water down there and some trees, and I've added those Malta walls. So yeah, after that second crash, I took a break from the dig site, and I actually started working on the habitat, and that was for like 20 minutes. And I did actually record this, but then when I started editing this video, I realized my footage looks like this. And I was just accidentally recording Steam for 20 minutes, so sorry you missed that bit. Here I am redoing. I've realized that the crash made me lose that little din set that I tucked behind those tents, and so here I am putting it back in. I really like this little din shipping container set. I think it's really cute. But yeah, so I've done a little bit of work off screen, but don't worry, you didn't miss too much. I keep in basically all of the rock work to make up for that. So yeah. We add some floodlights because I think, just to add a little bit of light and add more theming, I mentioned that we're mixing rocks, which is something I don't really do too much, and that's because I really wanted, this is a big habitat, right? And I wanted some big rocks to help with coverage, and the biggest rock we have in the temperate set is that really skinny one, which I love. It really serves a good purpose, but coverage is not really a great purpose for it. So for the edges of the habitat, I've been using some of those really big taiga rocks. I think they're from the taiga set. And for the dig site, I've used some of the Mediterranean rocks, the really white ones, because they kind of look like bone. They complement the fossils, and they sort of further sell that theming, I think. I am recording this on Tuesday the 1st, and I am seeing Jurassic World Rebirth on Thursday on the 3rd. And so it's almost rebirth time, guys. As I build this cute little garden, let's talk a little bit about Jurassic World Rebirth, because this is my last opportunity to talk about it with you guys before I've seen the movie and just sort of, put my thoughts out there. Honestly, though, I don't have much to add beyond what I've said in my second trailer reaction. If you've seen my reactions, you know how I feel about this movie, which is very mixed. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not a fan of how much they're showing. I've heard they've shown basically the whole movie in the marketing, which really upsets me. You guys know how much that bothered me with Fallen Kingdom. It really impacted my experience watching Fallen Kingdom. And so it really bums me out to hear that apparently they've shown basically all of Rebirth in the marketing, but hopefully there are still some surprises. I really hope so. I would think so. They didn't show the whole movie, did they, guys? I don't know. I'm seeing it on Thursday. Obviously, no spoilers in the comments, please. I don't know when I'm gonna get this video up, actually. But yeah, there are so many things in this movie that I don't like. Just decisions that have been made that I find really baffling, or I just straight up don't like. The mutants are the big one. The D-Rex has kind of grown on me. I still don't like it. And I really don't like the Mutadons. Even more so than the D-Rex. These just feel like the Mutadons feel like they could have been a real dinosaur. Why did they feel the need to do that? Oh, look, one of my Archelon got stuck, and if you don't know if any of your animals get stuck, just load back into your save file, and there they go. They're free. Anyway, I don't like the mutants. They could have just been actual dinosaurs. Why are there monsters taking up so much screen time in my Jurassic Park movie? This is my dinosaur franchise. I don't want monsters. Secondly, I really don't like the retcon of Site C, and it is a retcon. They are retconning in the existence of a third island, which we know the name of. I'm not going to say it for spoiler reasons, but it's Site C. They have retconned in a third island where research took place and experimentation took place, and I don't like the introduction of things when you're pretending like, oh, what do you mean this was here the whole time? The entire time this has existed. Like, no, it didn't. You just made it up for this movie because you wanted to go back to an island and do something new but also the same. I don't know, guys. I don't like the mutants. I don't like Site C, and I don't like the fact that we're going back to an island and retconning the dinosaurs in our world status quo that was literally just established by Dominion. The Jurassic World movies, especially Fallen Kingdom, did so much work to, get dinosaurs on the mainland, and then Fallen Kingdom ends before we can really see that in action, and then Dominion, obviously, very infamously, barely followed up on that premise, and so it's really frustrating that we spent a whole movie setting up a new status quo, barely did anything with it in the following movie, and now we're reverting it immediately now that there's a, the next movie it's just taking it back. So that really annoys me. It feels like we didn't get a chance to do dinos on the mainland correctly, and so it feels weird. I don't like the excuse of like, oh, they all just died out. I don't like the fact that we're backtracking, you know? So that's me complaining about Jurassic World Rebirth. What are some positives? I am so excited for the Mosasaurus sequence. It looks really long. It looks like there's a lot of cool shots of just, on the water, in danger with this giant Mosasaurus, which I do love the design of the new Mosasaurus. It just bothers me that it's not the same Mosasaurus from Dominion, but whatever. Or, all the World movies. That Mosasaurus is just dead, apparently. This is the part where I'm giving compliments. I'm really excited for the Mosasaurus scene, the river raft scene, even though I feel like they've maybe shown all of it in the trailers, but still it looks peak. The cast I'm excited to see. I love Jonathan Bailey, so I'm really excited to see more of him. Let's see, like I said, the Mosasaurus redesign I really like. The Spinosaurus redesign is growing on me. I still have some notes, but I'm leaning generally positive, and it's really just a matter of needing to see it in motion in the movie itself. So, Spinosaurus is my favorite dinosaur, and so the fact that there's apparently 4 of them, good grief. But yeah, it's gonna be a real mixed bag for me. It's made some large decisions that I don't like, going back to an island, it being a new island, and the introduction of the mutants. But within these big mistakes, it looks like there will be some fun sequences, like the Mosasaurus scene and the river raft scene. So really a mixed bag. It could be I said this before, it could be one of my least favorite movies in the franchise, or one of my favorites behind the original. We'll see. I doubt I'll end up liking it more than The Lost World, which is my current second favorite. If you don't know my ranking, I don't know if I've ever said it on YouTube. My ranking is Jurassic Park, obviously, and then The Lost World, then Jurassic World, then Fallen Kingdom, then Jurassic Park 3, and then Dominion at the bottom. So we'll see where Rebirth falls. I'm really curious. I'm obviously really excited to see it as a huge Jurassic fan, as a big dinosaur fan. But I have a lot of notes. Nobody is more critical of the things I love than I am, because I want them to be done right. I want things to make sense. I want things to be satisfying and pay off, and so I have a lot of notes, but I am, as I said, cautiously optimistic, and we'll see how I feel when I get out of the theater on Thursday. I might make a video, just a quick video giving my immediate thoughts, but obviously we'll see how I'm feeling. If I hate it, you won't hear from me for a while. Obviously, while I've been rambling about Rebirth, we have been very busy, and also right now we're working on that rock planter that I started early on, and I filled this in the footage that I lost when I was just recording Steam the whole time. But don't worry, you'll get to see me fill in a second one of these rock planters. Don't be alarmed. You'll get to see me do it all over again. You also see me hopping down into first-person mode just to scope out, how these viewpoints are looking from the guest height, and that lets me know what sort of, like, oh, I need to move this terrain a little bit, I need to bring this rock down. But yeah, we've done so much rock work. We've filled this with trees, and it's looking good. I've also elevated the terrain underneath the forest areas just to make it feel even bigger than it is, and add some height to the trees and really make it feel like it's this big imposing forest surrounding these Giganotosauruses, which I believe are in at this point. No, they're not in. They're ready. I see the little icon over the hatchery. What we're doing here is what I did last time for the Monolophosaurus habitat, and really what I do every single time I have sort of these ditch enclosures, these moats, these really big cliff faces where I give the guests an elevated view of the habitat. I line the bottom of the cliff face with rocks to create sort of a natural barrier that, if that isn't there, our animals will literally just walk up the cliffs, and that can look silly, and obviously I don't want them to do that. So we're adding some rocks to, you could either pretend that there is invisible fencing embedded in the rocks, or you could just imagine that naturally the animals would not, like, this cliff is too steep and the animals would not actually walk up it. So we're doing a lot of that, and then later on I also line all of the forest patches to keep them from walking through the trees, like I mentioned earlier. I still have things to talk about with Rebirth. I want to keep talking about it because, the movie you create in your head is always so much better than the actual, product that you end up seeing. And that's really true for Rebirth. Based on the little information we had when it was first announced, I was having all these really cool ideas, and I want to talk about that a little bit. The biggest thing for me was we had all those set photos of the temple. Also, our Giganotosauruses are in there. We got a cute little social animation, and I'm scoping out how they navigate the habitat and how big they are compared to everything. I've gone for one of my favorite skins, this green skin, dark green with like the blue face, and then one of these orange skins, just because I like the contrast between the two, and they kind of end up matching the autumn trees as well. I think they look really nice in this habitat. Anyway, we found out that Jurassic World Rebirth would have these like temple ruins, which look really cool. And, the premise was that the animals have retreated to these equatorial regions, and that they're getting DNA from the largest species from land, sea, and air. And so I'm obviously like, oh, the air species is Quetzalcoatlus. And so these ruins, maybe they go to somewhere in Central America to, this like temple, like this Aztec temple, which will have statues of Quetzalcoatl, which obviously Quetzalcoatlus is named after, that serpent god. And Jonathan Bailey, being our paleontologist, could have a really cool moment where he's like, oh wow, how ironic that Quetzalcoatlus is nesting in the ruins of its namesake, and sort of share that fact with the general audiences of the world, who of course wouldn't know that, and it'd be a genuine sort of paleontology fact that you can, both work into the movie and have it be a cool bit of sort of set dressing. But also I was imagining, oh yes, they're gonna get caught by the Quetzalcoatlus when they're, investigating the nest or whatever, and it'll chase after them, and it will like land on this huge statue of Quetzalcoatl, and it'll like crumble underneath the weight of the Quetzalcoatlus. And it's, this really cool imagery of something, ancient to humans, this statue of a god being crumbled by something simultaneously even more, prehistoric, but also modern, because, it's the modern age that brought these animals back to life. I don't know. Do you see my vision, right? Having Quetzalcoatlus like crumble a statue of Quetzalcoatl and sort of reclaiming the name almost. I don't know. This was an idea I had that I was obsessed with, and immediately became disappointed knowing that the movie would not use this. And obviously I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's in the movie. But guys, when we got that information that it was going to be a cave, and then Gareth Edwards was just like, you know what would be cooler if it was a temple, I was like, oh, this is not as intentional as I want to believe that it is, which is true really for everything like story or lore related in the Jurassic franchise. This is not as intentional as I wish it was. I really wish they would keep better track of their lore and make decisions like this instead of just, the mindless blockbuster action set pieces with the minimal amount of thought put into it. This franchise could be so much more than it's become. And so this is a good example, I think, and really just an excuse for me to share that awesome idea I had with the Quetzalcoatls. Anyway, I had a similar thought that I mentioned in my second trailer reaction when the Mutodons were referred to as feathered fiends. I thought, oh, this will retroactively explain why the velociraptors in this franchise don't have feathers. They tried to give them feathers, but, there was a mutation that resulted in them getting fully fledged wings, and, they're capable of taking flight. And that explains why they don't have feathers. Me thinking things will make sense and be intentional in some way. So I'm really ragging on this movie before I've even seen it. I should really lay off. Maybe I'll love it to death. This Mosasaurus scene really looks promising to me. But another example with the Mosasaurus scene is the fact that it's not the same Mosasaurus, and I feel like they aren't even going to address the previous Mosasaurus, and it'll just be vaguely, I don't even know if it'll be explained where this one came from. So the movie you make in your head is always better than the final product. And so, at least in my case, at least for me, maybe that's just my natural storyteller instincts coming through, but I feel like this franchise could be so much better than it is. Dominion really dropped the ball. And speaking of Dominion, I'm also really worried for the amount of screen time the dinosaurs are going to get in this new movie, especially with the mutants being thrown into the mix, because Dominion had like 2 minutes of screen time per species. It was awful. If that, Pyroraptor was barely on screen, and again, not explained at all. You introduce a raptor with feathers and your characters don't have dialogue for that entire scene. You don't even name drop Pyroraptor. This is becoming a rant. I am so sorry. I want this franchise to be the best that it can be. And I feel like the people making it have other priorities. So, which are making money, and that's why they're spoiling everything. They don't care as long as people go to the theater, get tickets, and sit in those seats to watch the movie and give it a big old box office number. They don't care how much they have to spoil in order to convince people to come see the movie, because by the time you've booked your seat, they've already got your money. So I don't know, this is turning very cynical, but Rebirth, from all the marketing so far, I don't have very high hopes. I hope I am pleasantly surprised. Obviously, you'll hear from me again, probably, after I have seen the movie on Thursday, in 2 days from when I'm recording this. We'll see. Anyway, I've been talking for so long about Rebirth. Let's see. Obviously, the Giganotosauruses are in, and we're just adding all these little viewing areas. I've added a viewing log. I've added this other rock planter, and a couple viewing towers. You saw me add one up on that elevated area, and we've just placed one down here. Otherwise, it's still a lot of just rock work of blocking in the dinosaurs from the tree line and blocking in the guests by lining the path with rocks. So many rocks, you guys, so many rocks. one of my Giganotosauruses somehow got stuck back in there. I don't know how that happened. So my solution is to add more rocks to really try to block it in there. And also the reason I'm being so close with all these rocks is because you may have seen me earlier for a brief second hop into the hatchery and glance at Segisaurus, because I enjoy every once in a while adding these tiny carnivores in with the large carnivores, or really into any large habitat, just as a little supplemental species, and also to, increase the number of animals in the park, to use a species that otherwise would be kind of difficult to build for, even though I do love building for tiny species. I'm rambling again. We don't end up using Sagisaurus because I love it so much. I do want to give it its own separate area. Look at me fiddling with this rock for like a minute. You'll see all throughout this video, if you haven't noticed already, I am adding rocks to these tiny spaces where I'm convinced they will fit, and I just kind of wriggle them around for a good chunk of time, but then usually I'm right and it will actually fit. I really have a good eye for these little rock areas. But yeah, we aren't going to add Segisaurus, but we will add a tiny carnivore, and you see me here giving them their own little space tucked behind, on the other side of the log viewing gallery, because obviously tiny animals can walk underneath it, and so that will give them a little private spot away from the Giganotosaurus where they won't have to otherwise compete for food, and there's a water source really close nearby. So I decided to add in some little tiny guys, which you'll see what I ended up picking very soon, but I did give them that little space tucked back behind the log. I've been talking so much, I'm just gonna leave you guys be for a little bit, and you guys can just enjoy the music. I'll be back soon. Here I am test driving the Jeep. I left this in because I think the sped up footage is really cute. Here I am just testing if it can get inside okay, which obviously it can. I've tucked the gate kind of back behind this little water feature, which I also added to accommodate any tiny species I maybe wanted to add. We're nearing the end of the speed build, so once again, oh, it's compies. Look at him, look at him. I added a bunch of little compies into this habitat. Since we're nearing the end of the video, like I said, do give suggestions for what this park should be named. Again, the themes are just colorful and my favorite animals. I'm so excited for Jurassic World Evolution 3. That game is going to be a blessing, but obviously that comes in October, so I don't know how far we'll get into this park, how many more episodes I'll make before Evolution 3 comes out, and that probably kind of replaces Evolution 2, which is kind of sad, but also, I, I'm excited. I'm ready for something new and something with more creative options, and to really get my hands dirty. I say that, like I said, I'm not huge on modular building, even in Planet Zoo, which is my favorite game. Um, I barely use modular building. I really just use blueprints. So I'll be using mostly blueprints as well here in Evolution 3. But yeah, I don't know how long this series will go, but I plan to do a few more episodes before the release of Evolution 3. And you see me here creating this funky little shape in the path, and I kind of eyeball it for a second, and I'm like, I could do something here. And so that will actually be in the next episode, which I've already recorded. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed. I know this was a long one, and I talked about Rebirth for most of it, but I wanted to use it as an opportunity to do that. My last moment to share my thoughts before I see the film. So as we add these little signs, I will bid you farewell. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!